Horns up.
Stand and deliver.
Pay attention.
News from across the NFL and the Minnesota Vikings in association with VikeFans.com. With your hosts.
Like I picked the wrong week to quit drinking.
The Lockstar, Al Hiram.
Did you eat a lot of paint chips when you were a kid? Why?
And Jason, the Beast, Barrow.
They think he's a righteous dude.
That was awesome. Oh boy, is this great!
And welcome to another episode of Horns Up, your weekly rock and roll Viking-centered podcast about the NFL, all around the NFL, and into the NFL in all the ways that you probably don't want to think about on a daily basis or at all ever. Yeah. I'm your host, Al, the Lockstar Hiram. Along with me is Jason.
The Beast.
Barham, yes. And our special guest tonight, Josh Zimmer. Any relation?
Hey, thank you very much. I truly appreciate it.
Is there any relation? Are you like, the lost son of Coach Z?
I actually, it's funny you say that because a lot of people have kind of asked me that question, and I've always told them no. I said he's my, but I do tell them that he's my uncle. So it's Uncle Mike. I actually wanted to get the opportunity when I was up there at training camp. I wanted to get the opportunity to one-on-one and just ask him, just be like, hey, so, talk about the family tree a little bit and see maybe if somewhere along the lines like, hey, if there's ever an opening in your guys' organization,
there you go.
Family comes first, right?
Yeah. Well, now, were you at training camp at all?
Yes, I was. I was up there. The first week they were there in Mankato leading up to the preseason home opener. I'd call it the finale, the grand opening of preseason for the Hall of Fame game. Okay. So I had a chance to see the scrimmage, their first live scrimmage they had inside of Blakesley Stadium.
So you were literally feet from us at one time and we didn't know. And
I was there. I was BSing with them all the time. And
oh, okay. That's who you were BSing with. I didn't know his name because you never introduced us. Just kidding.
He was pretty red by time end of his little trip there.
Oh, yes.
Well, I
learned fairly quickly that you can wear a hat and it still looks pretty good. So
there you go, right? Yeah,
I was rocking the Twins hat. As long as it's a Twins hat, by the way. I did learn that. It can't be a Cubs hat, although I am a Chicago fan.
What?
It has to be. I'm originally a little quick preview on that. I'm from Chicago originally. My dad was military, so
okay.
I basically grew up a Chicago Cubs fan. And
now we know he's not really your uncle because you can't be a Chicago fan and have Coach Z as your uncle. That's just not allowed, sir.
I'm hoping that deep down inside he's a Cubs fan because then maybe that means we're related in more ways than one.
Why would you hope that on somebody?
That's nothing wrong with the Cubs.
It's tough, but that's just how Chicago fans are. I guess that's just how Chicago Cubs fans are. I can't speak about Bears fans or anything like that, but I know certainly that's how Cubs fans are. That if we are going to struggle and suffer, we at least will be willing to invite anybody on the bandwagon to suffer with us.
Well, yeah, okay, I get you. So there's the difference, and if you needed to know out there, there's the difference between Minnesota fans and Cubs fans is that Cubs fans will invite you to the wagon. Minnesota fans will make you earn the wagon.
That's definitely the truth.
That's how it goes. So, I was surprised because, I didn't meet you up there. And, we, if you hung around with us having pizza and beers, Coach Z came in with his daughter and actually sat down, had some pizza, and cool thing about, I guess maybe it's a Minnesota comment, nobody bothered him. Everybody was like, is that Zimmer having pizza right there with his daughter? Yeah, man. And nobody bothered him. It was kind of a cool thing to see. So, hey, kudos up for that, I guess. He had more things on his mind, so yeah. So now, Jason, the Beast here, he tells me that you're into the Drafturbation as well as he is. So what's the deal here? Because I know Jason warned me that we're going to have a Drafturbation segment. Let's just dive right in. What's on your mind, Beast?
Well, obviously it's pretty evident we are going into week 7. Week 7, isn't it? I don't even know how far we are in the season.
Week 8.
We're going to
week 8, we just game 7 for the Vikings.
Yep.
We can see some of the holes that we have on this team. I mean, we are looking better than we have looked in years past. A lot of depth in a lot of positions that we've lacked the depth at, but still we're missing some key spots and some key areas. Obviously, the offensive line is going to have some work. Now that Sullivan is probably out for the rest of the year. Makes that trade with Hodges even a little bit, makes a little more sense. Because the guy that we got a center, but he was going to get waived. Well, it was pretty evident that we weren't going to be able to get him in a waiver order. We were too far down.
Right.
And they felt that maybe not this year, but next year he could play a role in Sullivan. Well, we lost Sullivan, and now Load Holt too, obviously, earlier in the year. So offensive line's going to be a key thing to try and fix. And another key position is a strong safety, something that I've been talking about. So I'm just kind of curious, Josh, who's in your top 5 safeties, and who is your favorite guy coming out?
Well, right now, I have them in really no particular order. If I had to put them in an order, it would go Jaron Kearse from Clemson. Everybody right now, just a little bit of a precursor. I am not a scout or analyst that is placing Jalen Ramsey, the stud from Florida State, as a safety.
Okay.
Although he's played safety the last 2 years, this dude he's a legitimate athlete. He could play corner, and he could be a Darrelle Revis type corner. You see it so far this season. He's done a great job. So I'm going to stick him with corner. So I have Jaron Kearse from Clemson, number 1, very physical. And he's a Cam Chancellor type body, 6'5", 215. I'm going to say he's even maybe a little bit heavier, around 220, but does basically the same things that Cam does for the Seahawks. Great in run defense. He has that center field range where you can line him up as a single high safety, and he can literally play sideline to sideline. Carl Joseph is my number 2.
Sorry.
Easily my number 2. I don't care that he has that ACL injury. I think, obviously, Adrian Peterson has proved that the ACL is not so much of a high-risk injury anymore. Career-ending injury is what it used to be anymore.
Terry Allen proved that, too.
He's just notable. But, I mean, we can go down the line of notable athletes who have had ACL injuries and have came back and haven't really skipped a beat. So Joseph is my 2. Von Bell from Ohio State. I don't necessarily really know what to do with this kid. I don't know if he's a free or maybe a strong, but he has great ball skills, and he's awesome in zone coverage. One of the big reasons why that Ohio State defense was so good against not only Alabama, but Oregon when they made that title run. Nate Andrews from Florida State is the intriguing one for me. A lot of people have him as a first-round safety. I see him more as a second- or third-round guy. And then rounding it out, a guy that I will tell you now everybody's talking about, but they don't necessarily know why, is Jeremy Cash from Duke. 3-time All-American. Again, he's a lot like the Jaron Kearse. He can play in the box. I would even say like a Harrison Smith, can play in the box. We'll keep it Viking similarities. Kearse and Cash are like Harrison Smith. They can play in the box. They can be blitzed if they need to. But the most important thing, especially when you're talking about secondary, is how are their ball skills? How do they play in coverage? And Cash has kind of shown that he can play in coverage.
And sorry we had to cut that a little short, but do stay tuned and stay paying attention to this channel, because you will see the bonus Drafturbation report containing all the information that, hey, you know what? There's a lot there, and it's quality stuff, so you don't want to miss it. Make sure you do click that next link. You'll see it here. You'll see it. Meantime, though, Week 7 in the NFL, midway through the season, just about, kind of, sort of, for a lot of teams that had their bye week already. This is kind of midweek and that kind of thing. It appears the Whompings for the most part have ended, but the shaking up is not yet done, because after their evisceration, the Lions fired offensive coordinator Lombardi, and their offensive line coaches in yet another midseason purge. On top of that, 5 teams still are undefeated in Week 7, setting another NFL record. The Pats, the Broncos, the Panthers, the Bengals, and the Asshole Faces. So, that being said, it's time for our high-speed cruise around the NFL. Thursday kicked off Week 7 with the Sea Chickens making the 49ers soup, because soup and chickens and it's cold, right? Right? Not really.
Right.
20-3. Sunday saw the Jags pounce upon mediocrity by beating the Bills in a close one, 34-31. The Skins pulled one out by the skin of their teeth. Skin! No. The score was 31-30. The Falcones narrowly escaped crushing the Tetons 10-7. The Aints ran out of excuses to lose versus the now hapless Colts 27-21. The Chiefs traded wampum for victory over the Steelers 23-13. The Rams rushed headlong and trampled the Browns 24-6. The Finns blew the Texacalis out their blowholes 44-26, and it wasn't even that close, peeps. The Pats kept their winning streak alive, albeit versus the Jets. No, I don't care how much media blowjobbery they get. They still lost by a score of 30-23. The Raiders upset the Chargers in surprising fashion, 37-29. The large New York guys, they would have upset the Cowpokes if the Cowpokes didn't actually start Matt Cassell. Yeah, that means they just won, 27-20. The Panthers went over the Eagles like a pack of mumras, 27-16. And on Monday night, the Cards defeated the Ravens 26-18. Welcome to the gutter, Baltimore. We've been expecting you. Finally, the Vikes decimated the Lions. Hey, overkill reference. We do claim rock and roll, right? Yeah, so. Finally, the Vikes decimated the Lions after a scary start, 28-19, but we'll break that down on its own. Some things I want to know from this week. A, what the hell happened to the Texans? I mean, the Finns dominated that game. They really did, and ended up giving up 26 garbage points because they were up 44-0 at one time or some crazy number like that. The Skins, they're desperately holding on to mediocrity. I want to know if that's because Cousins is mediocre, or was RG3 that big of a national stage size bust? And are we finally seeing the top/middle/low tier echelons of the NFL shakeout, or is it cloudy yet? What do you guys think of all that?
One thing, I'm so sick of hearing the Kirk Cousins little, "You like that?" I've heard that sound bite way too many goddamn times. I get it, though.
Right,
I mean,
okay.
they had the largest comeback in Redskins history, and all the good quarterback names that came out of there. I'd be fired up too. But
oh yeah, yeah.
The one thing, like you're just talking about the Texans. What the hell are they? Are they just tanking the season for the Penn State quarterback? What do you think, Josh?
Well, I certainly hope not.
Yeah, he's not looking that good either. So
no,
I know he did coach him at Penn State, but goddamn.
And it's funny you say that, because I've actually been thinking about that more times than not, and it's like, what the hell is going to happen if they actually do come in a situation where they could have him? Because the last time I did my mock, they were sitting at 14. So I'm thinking, no matter what, I do think that, the Texans have to go quarterback. I mean, they're absolutely depleted. And I feel bad for their fans just because of the fact that, at least when we struggled as Vikings fans, or even hell Raiders fans, at least they showed some promise. But I mean, this is embarrassing. The Dolphins have an interim head coach who, if any of you guys have seen South Park this season, looks like PC Principal, and I love it. This dude is awesome. Love the attitude, but 44-0. Now, I will say this. I'm extremely happy it happened that way, because I just so happen to have Lamar Miller starting on my fantasy team this week. I'm a little bit more, unbiased toward others. But for the majority, I think the one person you have to feel bad for in the state of the Houston Texans is J.J. Watt. $100 million man, and he's stuck with a putrid offense. And it's to the point where it doesn't matter how great their defense plays, and it's a living testament. It doesn't matter how well your defense plays or how great your defense is, but when you play 60, 70, 80, even sometimes 90 snaps on defense, I mean, you look at the games that they have played closely in, and even games that they've been able to squeak out wins. the defense had been playing manageable snaps, 50 to 60, maybe sometimes within that upper tier of 70 to 75 snaps. That's about average of what you want to play on defense. If you're playing 63 snaps on defense, everything is going the way it should be. You're getting them off the field, and your offense is controlling the clock. But even at 75 snaps, you're still giving your chance the equal opportunity to win, to where you can't necessarily say, well, it's the defense's fault we lost this game because they gave up this many points. But, like I was saying, when you play 90, I think the snap count was 94 snaps on defense.
Oh, my God.
For the Houston Texans.
That's terrible defense, yeah.
94 snaps on defense.
Right.
When you're playing 90 snaps on defense, nothing is going to go right. And it's exactly what's happening in Houston. I don't necessarily feel too bad for them because they've had opportunities here and there to land franchise guys at positions that they need, most particularly running back and quarterback. They failed to do so because they've had hope in false idols, in my opinion. I will call those guys false idols. If you truly believe that Brian Hoyer was going to come in and be your savior and be a guy that you could lead to the playoffs, that's your first problem. If you believe that Arian Foster was going to be able to somehow magically start drinking that whatever the hell that water is that, frickin' Russell Wilson keeps pushing on people and become magical to where he doesn't get hurt anymore, you're smoking something for that.
But on top of that, I would say now J.J. Watt realizes what Adrian Peterson has been feeling for about the past 8 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're getting paid. You're the star. You have to carry everything, but you can't. It's 22 guys that have to carry the team, plus your special teamers. So shit. What do you do? What do you do? But that brings us to our breakdown. Congratulations to the Vikings on their first road win of 2015 and their first divisional road win since 2012 and a season sweep of a divisional rival. Once again, the Vikings hammered the Lions and more specifically hammered Matthew Stafford into submission. We started slow, going down by double digits, but as Zirk on VikeFans.com pointed out, between the start of quarter 2 and the start of quarter 4, we gave up 5 total yards of offense to the Lions. Stafford was sacked 7 times and hit hard enough to break the offensive coordinator's career, as well as maybe another rib or two, I don't know. He was hit a total of 13 times and managed to break the O-line coaches as well. Teddy had his first statistically awesome game, going for near 300. I think it was, 254, 274? I can't remember.
No, you got to give him a little more than that. I think I got him going for 316 they got
316 and 2 TDs. And Peterson, even though he was surrounded in the backfield on every run once again, he still managed to break one for 75 yards and come out with 98 yards rushing. The Vikes also, and this is a great thing I thought, had 11 different players catch a pass in one game. They have not done that since 1979 versus the St. Louis Cardinals. What do you guys think of that breakdown? What do you guys think of that Lions game?
You go ahead there, Josh. What do you think there, bud?
I say most importantly is we mentioned it, you mentioned it, I should say, before, the defense.
Yeah.
Hats off to Uncle Mike and that defensive scheme. Everybody is saying, George Edwards is in charge of the defense. I'm going to tell you right now, he just has the title of defensive coordinator, but he actually has the honor, and I'm going to say it because this is the truth. He has the honor of being on that defensive staff for Mike Zimmer. He's not telling Mike Zimmer what to do for that defense. It's actually the other way around. He is asking Mike Zimmer what to do for that defense because Mike Zimmer has a proven track record of being a great defensive coach. Mm-hmm. But you mentioned it great. Second half, 5 yards total offense.
Between the second quarter and the fourth, yeah. Yep.
Seven sacks.
13
total hits, and I would be willing to bet that, or I would actually venture to say that they're probably being a little light on that number because, like I mentioned earlier, the double A-gap pressure absolutely destroyed Matthew Stafford. How many times did Eric Kendricks come unblocked on a blitz?
Right.
Or how many times did Everson Griffin come unblocked on a blitz? There were so many times where Matthew Stafford slid the protection the wrong way, that it allowed a free man.
The funny thing is, I think Kendricks only had 2 actual sacks recorded because there were so many committee sacks. It was like the guy was getting bombarded. It was just ridiculous. He would have 2-3 guys hitting him at once, every sack. It was just, and every hit. He was never soloed up. It was just a swarm back there. It was crazy.
Oh, he was pissed too. He was getting madder than hell out there, and I was loving it. After first quarter, I was getting worried. When they ran down the field, marched right down and scored 2 touchdowns right away, and it was 14. And I mean, we were countering, but we weren't finishing with the touchdowns. We were getting 3, and then did Walsh miss the extra point, or was it a field goal?
Yep, he missed the extra point.
He scored 15 points total from 5 field goals and missed 1 extra point.
Yeah, at first, so we had the potential to get touchdowns to match them, but we weren't finishing it. And after the first quarter, I was getting pretty worried.
I was getting pretty drunk.
Zimmer hit a switch on, and he said, "Let's go after these MFers." And I'm going to punch him right in the goddamn mouth all the rest of the game, and that's what he did. I mean, he just made Stafford again the second time this year we played him now. You never know. How we play on the road has been evident. Everyone's talked about that we've not played good on the road. Mm-hmm. So you didn't know if we were going to play like the first game in this game in Detroit. That's why I was getting worried after the first quarter. But in the second quarter, I mean, we beat the shit out of Stafford. I loved it. This season's going great. I mean, obviously, we still got a few holes, but it's pretty evident in year 2 of Zimmer's defense. This is his defense, and the players, even the free agents that we got, Captain Munnerlin, Linville Joseph, even Tom Johnson. Tom Johnson played pretty good last year for us already, but Captain and Linville Joseph have all stepped up in year 2 in Zimmer's defense. And this defense is definitely, in my mind, without trying to be not being a homer, it is a top 5 defense we got going on here. Right now.
It is now. It is now. Yeah.
And to go off of what you said, one last thing that I will throw some sugar at is how about the run defense in general? If my stats, if my mind serves me correctly, we have only given up 2 100-yard plus 100-yard games this season.
And one of those was with a 70-yard run blown play by Ronnie Hillman.
Yeah. You take that away, that's a 40-yard rushing game. But for the most part, obviously that Niners game was just a shamble. They ran for 256, but you look at this game, counting that missed play, but we still have to count it, unfortunately. They've only had, out of the 6 games they've played, they've only given up 2 games where they've allowed over 100 yards rushing.
And on this last one, Sharif Floyd, if I'm not mistaken, did not start. He wasn't even – did he even dress? Did he even play?
No, and he's actually going to be out for a while now because he just had – I actually got the update earlier today from the – lovely Vikings app. I do recommend everybody to get them because if you get notifications, you're getting it faster than you would be following Adam Schefter or any other of the great Vikings minds out there.
Right.
But he is actually going to be out the next couple of weeks because he just had ankle surgery.
Right.
So I think they said he's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. So that
shit.
So that could shelve him for the rest of the year.
Here's the thing, though, is what we are just saying, is what Josh was alluding to in that. And what we saw last week without Sharif, even with Linval in there and playing team defense instead of the hot dog defense, ever since last year, Zimmer's been preaching, team D, don't go outside your role, play your role, do your role, and that succeeds. You plug Tom Johnson in there, he takes up the slack because you're playing a team D. You're not relying on one person to be the superstar. And that's a beautiful thing. On the other side of the ball...
I was saying real quick, this is the thing that you're talking about defensive line, and I want to bring this up too because he's not getting enough credit as he should. This is the thing that I love, is that Zimmer has shown that he has a lot of trust in Scott Crichton. If you look at the snap count, they just signed Kendrick Ellis, and they had him dressed for the game. He only had 4 snaps in the entire game.
Right.
Scott Crichton, on the other hand, he did play in the 3 technique. He had 27 snaps in the game. So he's actually showing that he would rather, even though if he has to play a guy out of position, he trusts that he could play there. And Scott Crichton, again, was the guy that flashed during training camp. He's strong enough to play the 3 technique. So if the news is true about Sharif Floyd, being out the full 6 to 8 weeks, we will be okay with the rotation of the 2 big hosses like you talked about with Joseph and Tom Johnson, who's also a great pass rusher. But we also have the strength inside to when they get tired, we can bring in Scott Crichton and we're not going to miss a beat. I did want to throw that in there because Scott Crichton's a guy who's been playing a lot of snaps, but he hasn't been getting as much love as I think he should be.
No, you're right. Do we pick up Ratliff?
I don't know. That's actually a good question. I've been kind of pondering that. I talked to my partner today about that because he's our Bears analyst and he knows more about Ratliff than I do. I don't know if you do. Whatever the case may be, he had to be escorted out of Hallis Hall.
Well, that could also be because he has to deal with Cutler on a daily basis.
Well, that would make me want to not only become a raging alcoholic as a Bears fan, but as a player.
Wait, whoa, hold on. You're insinuating that some Bears fans are not raging alcoholics?
I don't necessarily. Well, they might be. I don't know a whole lot of them. So I do keep my friends pretty close in terms of they have to be They have to be on the same page with me as being, at least in my NFL fandom. Otherwise, there's going to be problems because I'm very passionate about football, obviously, and I don't take kindly to other teams. But no, I agree. But so we don't necessarily know what the key is there. But if it had to do with anything like that, I don't necessarily know if that's a guy that we would bring in for that opportunity. Now, we all know that Mike Zimmer is obviously up for second chances. I mean, he's given numerous players second chances, not just with off-the-field issues, but with second chances in general. I also wouldn't be surprised if we worked out Daquan Bowers, but we didn't sign him. He's still on the market. Wouldn't be surprised if we bring him in either. Now, obviously, his career floundered in Tampa Bay, but I'll be honest, Tampa Bay doesn't have the defensive line coaching or the defensive mind that we have. I mean, they have Leslie Frazier, but they've only had him for a year.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, because he is a great defensive coordinator, but he's just not a great coach. He was a good defensive coordinator, but he's not a great coach.
I can't keep a straight face when you say he's a great defensive coordinator. I can't even say it.
You looked at, that was one of the things is you looked at the defenses when, matter of fact, even going back to Mike Tomlin, Tomlin, Frazier, and now, I call Zimmer the head coach DC. I call him, we call him just, Father Time, Uncle Mike, having control there. The defense is, within the front seven has always been good. We've never really struggled within the front seven for the most part. It's always been in the secondary. And that was one of the things that Leslie Frazier struggled with. We haven't had a solid, I would say a truly top 10 solid secondary since Tomlin was the head, was our defensive coordinator.
Okay.
But that defensive line coaching in Tampa, number one, has a different philosophy than what Zimmer coaches. And the thing that Zimmer has kind of proven, obviously, with some of the players we can bring them off the top of our heads if we want. Tom Johnson, he's able to find and develop those players. I mean, look what he did with Michael Johnson in Cincinnati. And that's a $50 million man who only lasted 1 year in Tampa because he wasn't playing in Zimmer's scheme.
Right.
So I think if you bring in a Daquan Bowers, they're going to find a way to use him. I think it might, in terms of the off-the-field risk, would be a little bit better than bringing in maybe a Jay Ratliff. But who knows? I mean, we don't necessarily know what they're thinking. I mean, we also thought that, some of the guys that they've kept on the roster, as a matter of fact, trading away Hodges, I thought that was crazy. But now that we're thinking about it now, especially with Sullivan being out, it actually wasn't that bad. We got a draft pick out of it, and we got an offensive lineman. So we don't necessarily know what Slick Rick is thinking.
Right.
But I will say this, whatever he does will be for the benefit of the team, because that's one thing, again, that they do a very good job of, is bringing in players who immediately find a way to be an impact.
Well, and again, it's the system defense. And instead of the hot dog defense, it's a system defense. You got to have guys that fit the system and work their role, Brian, we hear it all the time. You read VikeFans.com, you hear it all the time. B-Rob, he's not a statistical anomaly. He's not somebody who makes your stats, but he makes everybody else better by what he does, filling in that role he's supposed to fill. He may not get the sacks, but the guy pressures and pressures and pressures, sucks up blockers, does his job. That's an amazing thing when you're playing a Team D.
Well, we'll do a quick little rundown on the offense before we get to next week's.
Yes.
Roll the Bones.
Diggs.
Yep. Took the words right out of my mouth right there. You got her. I mean, that was the highlight of our offense. Like Josh was talking about, I was up there with Josh on that same day at the scrimmage night. Diggs was the man of the night.
He was.
And it's evident that wasn't a fluke just on that night. He is showing that for a fifth-round pick, how the hell did he last till the fifth round? He's truly – our first 6 picks so far have all played a key role in at least a half of one game.
Right.
Even McCole Pruitt, he was the other fifth-round pick. He had a nice catch. I mean, he's here and there. But, I mean, you got Trey Waynes. He had to play that half for Xavier Rhodes. You got Kendricks. Daniil Hunter, he had to play for Everson Griffin when he got ill. TJ Clemens, he obviously had to fill in for Lodeholt. And then we got our 2 fifth-round picks in Diggs and Pruitt. But Diggs, man, is stealing the show.
He is emerging, and I think the Bears are going to key on him next week.
Who do you think they're going to put on him there, Josh?
Well, I was telling Montel this. I actually hope and pray that they put Kyle Fuller on him, because Kyle Fuller has proven that within the scheme that Chicago runs, they can't. He's not effective. He's effective playing in zone. They're asking him to play in man. The one thing that Stephon Diggs is really, really good at, and you can go to NFL Now and watch it, because Bucky Brooks broke it down perfectly this morning. He is awesome at manipulating a corner's hips when breaking his routes in man coverage.
There you go.
He does a really good job of doing a little bit of like a quick shoulder lean and planting and driving, but his release from press coverage is what's more impressive. If a corner is going to funnel him in, he'll ride with it, he'll funnel it in, but then he has that great setup before he cuts his route to make that break and drive to, again, manipulate the corner. You go back and watch the Kansas City Chiefs game. He made Sean Smith look like a child, flat out. And Aqib Talib, for that matter, looked like a child. The route that he put on Aqib Talib was pretty filthy. And Aqib Talib, in a lot of people's minds right now, is a top 5 corner.
The filthy route.
And it was, that's exactly,
that was filthy.
That's the only way that you can put it. It was absolutely filthy.
Right.
Talib was playing an off, trying to manipulate it, and hopefully trying to jump the route. Diggs put a nice little, right step, left step, and then drove. Talib slipped and fell backwards. And the same thing happened with Sean Smith in that Chiefs game. And we saw what happens when you allow him to run a double move untouched against Detroit. That's what's going to happen. Is he's going to manipulate the corner's eyes, thinking that the route is going to break, when really he's just setting you up, and then he's going to be wide open. All right. I completely agree with all you guys, man. Stephon Diggs is a dude.
He's a
straight
star.
Beast.
The emerging star of the team. Last week, again, showing it up, and I think that's going to lead us to next week, which is time to roll the bones. Next week is the week we finally face a division rival that we legitimately hate and don't think of as our weakling little brother. The Bears come into this game a dumpster fire, but hey, I tell you what, man, even burning garbage can burn you if you're stupid, which is why the Bears have won 2 games so far this year. The Vikings are slightly behind in total yards per game by 325 to 337 and passing yards 197 to 225, but they do lead in rushing by 128 to 112. Now, a win would give the Vikings their second straight NFC North road victory in consecutive weeks for the first time since weeks 4 and 5 of 1998. It would also improve us to 5-2, which is the first time since 2012 that we are 3 games above 500. It would also give us our first win at Chicago since 2007. That's crazy. That's crazy. So, break down the stats of the game. What are we coming in with? What are you guys seeing?
Let's start with the defense here. How many times have we already talked about this? Another 3-4 defense that the Vikings are going to be facing here. Who did we play? We played San Francisco 3-4.
Okay.
Kansas City runs a 3-4.
Yep.
Denver runs a little bit of a 3-4.
A little bit.
And there was one more, I swear, in there.
All right.
Oh, San Diego.
Oh, yep. All right.
I mean, we've been playing a lot of 3-4 teams. The only, obviously, that was our 2 losses playing against a 3-4 team. But that in Denver, I mean, our offense was going against the best defense at the time. So, yeah,
Right.
whatever. But we'll talk about the defense of Chicago.
Yeah.
Nothing really out there that really scares the guy out there.
Well, actually, for me, there is.
I do like Kendall Fuller, though.
There is
but-
the one scary stat for Chicago's defense. They're only allowing 220 passing yards per game, and that's 6th in the NFL. But on the other side of that, they're also allowing the 3rd highest passer rating, and they've only had 3 interceptions while allowing an NFC tying, I guess, record of 15 touchdown passes. So they're not a yardage defense, yeah.
And Chicago is actually ranked 20th, though, in rushing defense.
Right. I think Peterson is going to eat their lunch today because they have to focus on Diggs now. And I think that's just sugar for Peterson. You can't stack.
Don't run him out of the shotgun, damn it.
Don't dance, just run. Yeah, I get you.
Run, Forrest Peterson, run.
On the offensive,
Well, I think,
go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
well, I think the biggest thing too, we talked about, that defense. Obviously, it's all going to depend on how well Kyle Fuller plays on Stephon Diggs.
Right.
If Kyle Fuller plays well, then it's going to be interesting in that pass game. But within the front 7, the only thing that we have to truly worry about is Pernell McPhee. He leads the NFL right now in average hits per game on a quarterback, which is 13.
Who does Pernell McPhee play over? Where does he play on the Bears?
Well,
defense?
they kind of bounce him around, but
Right.
he would be over TJ Clemmings for the most part.
So you'd have to put maybe an extra tight end, maybe put Rudolph for his vaunted blocking ability out there to give him a chip, or even Rhett. That would be a perfectly fine example for that. The thing is, 3-4 defenses are easy to get 3 yards on or 4 yards on. So if you want to do a grinder game, they're not easy per se, but you have 3 guys on the line and linebackers have to come up. So you got a couple of yards in there. So if you want to do a 3-3-4 game with Peterson and run him 30 times, you'll win the game. You'll score 12 points, but you'll win the game. The problem comes in the pass. If they can cover Diggs, that leaves Wallace. If they can cover Diggs and Wallace, that leaves Rudolph. Rudolph hasn't been a big threat this year, but I tell you what, the more you back the defense up over the receivers, the harder it is to cover a tight end, and then you've got Peterson to deal with too. So it's kind of a pick-your-poison game for the Bears, in my opinion. The part that scares me, and this is literally the part that scares me the most about the Chicago game, Cutler stinks. Let's be honest. He's not a consistent quarterback, but when he gets hot, he gets really, really hot. And
I just love to see him light up a cigarette on the sideline.
Right, yeah, the Cutler smoking meme, yeah. But no, when Cutler gets hot, he gets really hot, and it's usually at the worst possible time in the game. And that's how they've won 2 games this year. And it's been when Cutler decides to, actually play. That's the part that scares me, is that he's a dangerous quarterback sometimes. Not all the time. He's very inconsistent. But when he gets hot, it's hard to stop him, especially when you got Alshon Jeffrey, who's kind of like, I know we're going to put Rhodes on him, but he's kind of like another Calvin Johnson, a huge body that can run, that can move, that can catch really well. So that's the part that scares me about this next game.
Yeah, their offense, they didn't think they needed Braden Marshall. They traded him away because they got Kevin White. Kevin White hasn't even played a single snap for him.
Right.
Doesn't look like he's even going to. Tight end is probably their biggest target, and Bennett. Jeffrey, obviously, is their playmaker, wide receiver. Marquise Wilson is another good receiver that's coming in his own light, and then they got Eddie Royal. But they've battled through injuries, all of them. And then you obviously got Forte, who is one of the best underrated running backs out there. He's still at the age of, I think he's 30 now, but he's good in every aspect. Not great, but he's good in
he's solid,
pass blocking. Not like Peterson, but I mean, he's good in the receiving game back there. He's good at running. I think if you take Forte out, I think Rhodes is going to have a better game against Jeffrey than he did last week against Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson last week actually looked healthy, good. Yeah. He's playing in a prime form right now. So, I mean, people are kind of down on Rhodes right now. But I tell you what, you're going against a top 3 receiver in the league. And he held him to a pretty decent minimal game. I mean, he did have some big plays in there, but this week I think Rhodes gets back and plays a good game against Jeffrey. Key is going to be just attack Cutler.
It's interesting you mention that because playing Jeffrey this week is kind of like playing Calvin Johnson all over again. And so, it's kind of like, you don't even have to change mindset. Here's a big guy who can run and who can really catch. So, I do think Rhodes will take a step up this week. And I think with our, team run D, we're going to hold Matt Forte down. He is good. I will not take it away. You have to watch Matt Forte. If the Bears can establish a run, oh, shit, we're in trouble. But if we can take that away from him and Rhodes can bring his, CJ game to AJ, then we're going to win 31-17. That's my prediction.
I think I'm going to go right around, I think we're going to do 27-13.
Okay. How about you, Josh?
Well, I'm going to I'll say 35-31.
Wow.
I do believe that it's a little high scoring. I know, especially with how well that defense has been playing. But I do believe that, again, if Jay Cutler gets hot, it's going to be hot, and he's going to make this game close. Uh-huh. And so I will credit them to at least 31 because they have kind of proven that they can score in the high 20s this season.
They have. Well, actually, last week was the first week since week 1 that they broke 400 yards in total offense. 353 going to Jay Cutler off of 444 yards. But that was with Jeffrey in, and that's assuming Jeffrey won't get shut down. I think Detroit, we've proven their defensive backs might be a bit overrated. And I think that's why Chicago was able to put 4-4 up on them. With Rhodes, I don't think they do that, so I think it's gonna not be quite so close. I think we're gonna break them early on this one, as long as our defense gets up on Forte and makes Cutler hurt. So I think if we get to Cutler and we pressure him, because Cutler's prone to mistakes, he's a hothead, even though he doesn't look like it. I think we run away with the game if we can pressure him early and hold down Forte.
Pretty much. Well, Josh, what do you think? You got anything else to kind of close out the end of our show here this week?
I have 3 keys. 3 keys. More than likely it's going to be a little bit of both. Most importantly, got to get after Jay Cutler. Got to get after the got to get him in passing situations. Got to stop the run game.
Yep.
Second key, offensively, we have to control the clock. So Teddy has to be efficient. We have to be able to get the run game going. And then third, most importantly, we have to get the ball into our playmakers' hands. And when I say playmakers, over the last 3 weeks, I'm talking about Stephon Diggs. Got to get the ball into his hands, because when the ball's in his hands, good things happen more often than not. If the Vikings can do 2 of those 3, or hell, even be really nice to me and give us 3 out of 3, there is a great opportunity that the Vikings can blow this game wide open, just like we did this past weekend in Detroit.
I agree. And I think that your playmakers are Diggs and Peterson. I know it's not the popular opinion, but, dude, they held him. They were in the backfield for most of the game last week, and he broke one for 75 and changed the whole complexion. That's a playmaker.
Well, it should be a fairly good matchup for the running game this week, so we'll see what Peterson's got left.
Right.
From last week in the old Shrimp Gate.
Shrimp Gate. Shrimpgate, really? Shrimpgate? All right. So there you have our predictions put down for posterity and put up on the internet tomorrow. We'll see you all next week. Thank you again, Josh. Do give out one more pimp to your draft site.
Oh, yes, sir. You can find all of my work and all of the rest of the work of our Draft Central team at ngscsports.com on the Draft Central tab. And you can also follow us on Twitter at JZimmer_NFL and NGSC_DC. You'll be able to find all of our draft hot takes.
Awesome. Josh Zimmer, thank you for joining us. Thank you to everybody who listened to us. Thank you to, of course, VikeFans.com, who got us all together to do this. And we'll see you next week. Skol, everybody.
Thank you, and just do me one favor, Josh. Say Skol for us all here at VikeFans.com to your old uncle. Uncle Mike.
Oh, yes, sir, I will. I will make sure Uncle Mike gets the news immediately.
All right. We'll see you next week, folks. Thanks much.
Thank you.